I think it's about time that we go back to the husband store. Climb aboard the DragonShip.
Through the white thunderstorms, we ride on the back of our drunkards in a fearless stride. Sons of gold, hearts made of fire, conquering lands, fueling our desires. Roaring engines and lightning in our eyes. United we stand, our strength won't compromise. From the east to the west, we sail, we roll, we're the Valhalla warriors. Never feel alone, landscapes of freedom. Beneath open skies, a promised land where our spirits arise. We battle the storms, the tides of the sea. Now we've arrived in the land we're meant to be.
Good morning, you Saturday savages. Excited for another episode of the DragonShip here. I am your host, Huds, and I'm joined alongside some very good friends here. Tarl, Viking Paradigm. What's going on, brother?
Joel. Going good, man. Enjoying the morning.
Join the morning. Love to hear it. Glenn, where are you at?
I'm in a fucking hospital. Where the fuck you thinking I'm at? Yeah. I'm here with Thor at the hospital. We're hanging out, checking out nurses, trying to get.
Wait, you're checking out the male nurses? What's going on?
No, Huds, that's you. Come on. We go through this every single time. We're over here. I'm trying to get a sponge bath by a hottie, but it's not happening. Why is Paul playing on my phone? Shut up, Paul.
Well, best of luck on that endeavor. Hope's all's good.
Well, I'm going to go on strike. Either they wash me or I'm going to stink. Their choice.
Fair enough. Kevin, how we doing, brother?
Doing great, sir. How are you?
Doing good. Excited for the conversation today. And Wraith, what's going on, man? You're on mute.
Why didn't you unmute me? No, not much going on. Just been writing pretty intensely for every day this week. So.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Well, awesome, guys. Today we're going to be talking about the husband store. I think that most of us may know the story. Some may not, actually.
We did the wife story, didn't we? We did the wife story?
No. We're going to talk about the wife story at some point.
We did the wife store.
Did we?
On Big Brothers. And then we did the husband store right afterwards.
I don't even remember, man. We've done way too much content. I can't even trace that back. But yeah, so where the husband store initially came from is I don't know if it's initially from Lori Gottlieb, but Lori Gottlieb was an author who wrote a book, Marry Him, and there's a lot of flack on it. It's really interesting. When I was Google searching it again the other day, they've turned it from what it was, which was a metaphor, into speaking about it as if it's like a joke and how it's like hateful to women. But I actually think it's kind of realistic to women. So I'm going to go ahead and read through that. What's going on, Vidar?
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good. We're just getting started here.
Just super busy, just getting in from some work I was doing, and glad I could make it in time.
Awesome.
I'll be in and out for a few minutes, but I'll be listening the whole time. So
sounds good. No problem. So I want to go ahead and get it going here. I'm going to zoom in just so you guys can read along. So the story of the husband store. So Lori Gottlieb and Marry Him. This is the story. A new store has opened. A husband store. There's a sign at the entrance. You may visit the husband store only once. There are 6 floors, and the value of the products increases on each successive floor. The shopper can choose any item from a particular floor or go up to shop on the next floor, but she cannot go back down except to exit the building. So, a woman goes into the store. On the first floor, the sign on the door reads, Floor 1, men who have good jobs. That's nice, she thinks, but I want more. So she continues upward, where the sign reads, Men who have good jobs and love kids. She's intrigued, but continues to the third floor. And there the sign reads, Floor 3, men who have good jobs, love kids, and are extremely handsome. Gosh, what more would you want? Wow, she thinks, but she feels compelled to keep going. Floor 4, men who have good jobs, love kids, are extremely handsome, and help equally with the housework. Whoa. That seems to be everything, right? It can't get better than this, she exclaims. But then that voice inside of her asks, or can it? She goes up and reads the sign. Floor 5, men who have good jobs, love kids, are extremely handsome, help equally with the housework, and have a great sense of humor. Gosh, what more would you want from that? Stable income, love kids, good with kids, extremely handsome. They help with the housework, make your life easier, and they're also funny. Like, what more would you want at that point? Having found what she's looking for, she's tempted to stay. But something propels her to the 6th floor, where the sign reads, Floor 6, you are visitor 42,215,602 to this floor. There are no men on this floor. This floor only exists to prove that women are impossible to please. Thank you for shopping at the husband store. Hence why, let me take this out. Hence why, if you look at this thumbnail here that I had created, you see all the women leaving the store without anything. And this is a problem that I've seen in modern society more and more, that the women always want more until they become 35 years old, and then they start freaking out, and then they'll either settle down for a temp husband, so to say, that they'll have just to prove to the world, okay, I can get married, and then end up divorcing him anyways because she never loved him. So I want your guys' thoughts on this, at least to initially start. Tarl, we're going to start with you. What are your thoughts on the husband store here?
Well, I mean, it does prove the point quite nicely. It's metaphorical, but that's what happens when you try to please a woman, right? She won't appreciate it because you're doing too much. Less is more. I tell guys this all the time. Like, they always feel like they got to do more, but that's what simps do, right? They try more. They think that if they turn the dial up to 11, it's going to work, but that's just doing too much. And you're just going to tire yourself out. You're not going to gain anything, and you're going to lose respect because you're not respecting yourself. You're not acting respectable, right? And that's where a lot of guys lose the plot. They think that if they just keep doing it and they stick to the plan, that it'll work eventually. Never does. And women buy into this too, right? It takes two to tango, as we always say. So,
yeah. No, it's an interesting take. I find it fascinating because I just see so many, especially at this age. So I think like 31 now or something. I don't know. When you get to a certain age, you forget to count. But in my age group, I'm seeing a lot of women who they can't. Oh my God, here's a great example of it. When I met some of my girlfriend's friends years ago when we first started dating, one of the girls was dating a multimillionaire real estate guy, but he was boring. So she broke up with him because he was too boring, even though she's massively overweight and was a huge bitch. But regardless, she had everything and it just wasn't good enough. So she ended up breaking up with him, then realized she could never get something that good again, then decided to get tattoos all over her body, and she's been a mess ever since. And it's just crazy. Like, I just don't understand the logic. Like, when is good enough, you know?
well, that's the thing. It's not logical. And if you pay attention to the husband store, what was missing from every one of those floors? Like, he had sense of humor, had good looks and all that, but where was the fun? as you said, women often get bored, and that is the number one cardinal sin as a man. If you let your girl get bored, she will leave you. It doesn't matter how much other shit you've done and everything else that's going on. It could be perfect, but if she gets bored, she will move on. And that's a sad, that's a harsh truth for a lot of people. Like, oh, my girl would never. But I've been, see, when it comes to like the husband store and even the wife store, I've been part, I'm 40 now. I've been part of a lot of conversations where both men and women are sitting there going down this like grocery list of all the things they would like in a partner. For men, it typically is more about looks and things like that, right? And for women, it's about like more personality traits. Well, looks are still in there. They downplay that a little bit more for obvious reasons, trying to save face. But that's still, health is for both sides is important, physical attractiveness and health. But it's all of these things that don't really matter as much in the relationship in the long term, right? To actually stay together. And that's the thing, like I've always been kind of what you call red pilled on that, is I'm just like, you're talking about all these other things. I'm looking at like how the other person treats you, right? I was always looking for somebody that would treat me well, right? Looks were a factor, but health is a factor, but I'm still going like, what are you guys talking about? You're talking about all this superficial stuff, and that stuff is important, but I'm not hearing any discussion about how compatible you are. And it doesn't matter if you like the same things. Liking the same things doesn't make you compatible, right? Sometimes that can actually make you more incompatible because you're going to fight about that shit because you have your own opinion on it. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. How do you resolve conflict? I want a partner that's good at communication and solving conflict, and working with me, being a team player. But, I digress.
Interesting. It's interesting that you say that, because you're right. These are all the superficial type of things that are good for initial attraction, but they're not necessary or not as important for long-term like compatibility. I like that point. All right, Glenn, let's move to you. You got any thoughts on this?
Girlfriends are better than wives.
Why do you say that?
Because it's true. Girlfriends are better than wives. Like, okay, when she gets the ring, when she gets that leverage on you, you are gonna, if you don't have frame, if you're not like Wraith and that has that ability to just command and just maintain that frame over a long period of time, it's going to be death by 1,000 concessions. And when you do that death by 1,000 concessions, you're going to be giving up ground over time because she has that leverage now. Girlfriends are better than wives.
Without that without that chain on you.
Yeah.
Ball and chain.
That's part of why I never got married. I looked at the contract. It's not worth it. It doesn't gain you anything. Even for the woman, it doesn't really gain much. Outside of a biblical context, marriage is really nothing more than elaborate mate guarding when you really break it down.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. And that I don't necessarily want to say it's like a test, but what's interesting is like my girlfriend, she always wanted to get married. She can't wait to have kids. Like she's so excited about all those types of things. Yet she's accepted, because she loves me, she's accepted my stance on not having traditional marriage. And that's it's very weird for people to grasp. And I think it's because I kind of like broke her out of that traditional social programming where there's no difference of us being together and having a commitment to one another without the formality and involving the state. And she's accepted it because you just logically break it down, and it's like this is who I am, this is what I believe, and she's stuck around with it. And even when she shares it to her friends, or like she'll like in discussion with coworkers, every time they're just like, "What? He doesn't want to get married?" And it's like they can't even understand that it's the same thing. But I digress.
Always speak louder than words.
Yeah,
always
exactly.
They always speak louder, and that's the thing, is that my girl and I were loyal to each other, right? We stay together. We don't need to say words to make that happen. Our actions make that happen.
Absolutely. Kevin, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Well, the husband store, I mean, it's pretty typical, especially in Western women nowadays. If you give them that other option to see what's the next level, yeah, of course they want to see that. You can be everything that they want at the time, but then when they have the opportunity to see something possibly better, the grass is greener type thing, they're always going to take that. And, men are guilty of it as well. But Western women, you see it a lot. That's why I agree with Glenn. Girlfriends are better than wives, because once you evolve the state and she wants to go to that next level that you can't provide, she's going to no fault divorce and take half your shit, or at least try. So that's why, I'm kind of in agreement with, well, not kind of, definitely in agreement with Tarl's stance and Alex's stance. But I can even take it a step further. If I'm somebody that I want to spend the rest of my life with, I'm all about having a ceremony. We can say the vows. We can both wear rings. However, there's not going to be a signed document with the state saying that we are legally married. And if you can't accept that, you can't understand that, then okay, that's fine. I wish you the best.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm right there with you. And that's my stance on it. So it's definitely very interesting. Paul, better late than never, I guess.
What's going on, guys? I was wrapping up Rule Zero.
No worries. Was it a good show today?
I thought so. We complained about women, and so mission accomplished.
All right. We're doing the same thing here.
Sweet.
We just went through the husband store. I think you may be familiar with the analogy where it's a 6th floor store, and you can go to the next floor, but you can never go back down. And women always want more until they get to the 6th floor, where it essentially is like a there's no men there.
This is just to prove that women are impossible to please. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's funny about that is if you watch like TikTok videos and stuff like that, lots of women do this as a skit, like to themselves, because they know it's true. They know that they're never happy. They they can never truly stop, succumbing to that hypergamous nature of like, what's the next best thing, right?
Right. And you know what, Kevin, I was gonna throw this out when you were from one of your statements, and even what we're just talking about right here. I'm wondering, like, what do you think is causing women to have such high expectations? Personally, I believe it's the naivete of looking at social media and seeing the lives of of a lot of different people out there, a lot of different women or a lot of different guys. They're seeing this, that they're like, I want that too. And so they'll never settle until they have this false reality that is being presented to them day in, day out.
Yeah. I think social media and dating sites definitely contribute to that. We talk about in the man space of scarcity mindset. Well, a lot of women, especially average women, have an abundance mindset because they can turn on their Instagram and they've got 15 DMs from guys all over the world saying she's the most beautiful woman they've ever seen, and they want it. And same with dating sites like Tinder. A man might average 10 matches a week or 10 likes a week, whatever you want to call it. A woman can sign in after being on there for 12 hours and have 150. So she's seeing all these different interests from different men, which most of them just only want one thing, but they think that they can get any man that they want. And a lot of them can, but long-term, anything other than the bedroom, they realize very quickly after they've been ran through that that's not the forever, the fantasy that they have in their mind is not what they're going to end up getting.
I think the world was so much better off before social media, and it's just insane. Like, I think that the more a girl is on social media, the more connected she is to things, the more likely she is to fall victim to this.
Yeah.
I would dispute that a little bit, though.
All right, let's hear it.
Because social media has exaggerated it. But here's a little bit of a history lesson. So people always talk about the good old days, right? But see, here's the thing. there used to be this common practice in high schools back in like the 20s, 30s, 40s, before social media, before TV and radio were even a big thing, right? And what was it? Oh, they would do letter writing campaigns. So all the boys around the school, they would go around and get letters praising them from neighbors, people at work, family, friends, stuff like that. And they would get all these letters together. And then it was basically a popularity contest. Which boy was the hottest shit, right? So when I learned about this, I'm like, this is off. This sounds a lot like social media, followers and likes and people leaving comments and then you showing those comments to impress girls. I'm like, it's all happening again. It's just the micro version versus the macro. The social media phenomenon that we see now is simply a blown up and expanded version of our human natural behaviors.
I don't know. I think it's. I hear what you're saying. I just think it's a little bit further than that because it creates unrealistic expectations, and it inflates the ego.
What it did, it created a distorted sense of purpose. Okay. When I was growing up, purpose was find something that you're going to be good at and excel at that. Okay. What if you talk to everyone on social media's purpose these days is to be famous. Famous is not an end goal to being a purposeful human being.
Yeah, I think that's a good delineation between the two, because I don't think it's with purpose versus I think what you're talking about, Charles, back in the day that was done with purpose. Now it's all over the place. Maybe it's just not focused anymore.
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. It's just on a different scale. Because to go around and have people write letters about how great you are is just as stupid as sitting here on the internet and having people tell you how great you are. All right, that's not what I'm talking about. People don't struggle today. There is no struggle in society today for 90% of the population. Right? Even people at poverty level in the United States don't struggle. There's no struggle. Therefore, if there's no struggle, you can't find purpose. All right. There's people that have people have always found purpose in living, not being popular, not being famous. That's where distorted points of view come from. When you talk about the beauty of women, you never know what the beauty of a woman is. Now, you got 15-year-old girls going in and getting plastic surgery and changing their face structure. You don't know if you're going to have ugly kids until you have them.
That's very true.
I'm trying to suit over that.
That's what your parents had to deal with, Huds.
Ooh.
What are you talking about? I have the same nose as my mom. So, and
Yeah,
this big beak.
Well, even past that, the filters nowadays.
Well, when you guys talk about marriage and stuff, you talk about marriage like it's something other than what it is. Okay, what is marriage? If you go back to the Bible, marriage is a commitment and a agreement between you, her, and God. It's not about any legal thing. All right. Now, are there advantages to legal marriage? When you get to be mine and Vidor's age, there are advantages to legal marriage because you can care for that person after you're gone. There is an advantage to it. But that's not the reason I get married. The reason I get married is because I think I want to spend my life with this person. And I find a person that I want to spend my life with that's willing to struggle through life with me. Even if the struggle is, can I buy a $200,000 car as opposed to a $100,000 car? That's the level of struggle we have. It's not like when I was growing up, my father told me, if it comes between making your house payment and making your car payment, make your car payment because you can't drive your house to work. Those were real problems. We don't have those problems anymore for the majority of people.
So you know what, Grace? We don't have those problems anymore. We have a whole different set of shitty problems. You guys had an era where commitment, value, that meant something. If you gave your word, if you said you're going to do something, you did it, because it wasn't just because it's like, oh, it's because you're that honorable. It was like, because if it was even perceived that you didn't do it, that you didn't see it through, like you were looked down upon or looked less than from the group. Now it's like, yeah, women and men, they get in these marriages, and then you know what? I'm done with them. There's no the commitment. There's no bond there. There's nothing there holding them there, other than what can they gain from it?
Well, but see, that's our own fault, because if I take just this group of guys that I'm talking to right now, I surround myself with you guys because you have guys have the same values, the same commitments to each other, the same commitments to the world as a whole, really. Okay, because you deal with people based on how they perceive your values and if they share those values. That's why I associate with you guys. We all have similar to the same values. I don't bring people into my life that don't share my values. At least large percentage of them. I don't bring women into my life that don't share my values. Does that make my group small? Yes, it does. But I'm happier in a small group where I can trust people and be with people that have honor than I am living on the internet where everybody's talking bad about me behind my back.
Yeah, and that gets down
My
to
heart wants to explode. Go ahead.
Sorry.
We're
You
not
might-
getting any audio. Well, while you get that figured out, Wraith, I do have to disagree with you. You can drive your house to work.
Well, if you buy a motor home, yes.
Oh, it's called a Winnebago. Thank you.
But
I can add something.
When you look at women today and you say, well, they're not satisfied with anything. All right. It's because they're looking at men that aren't satisfied with themselves either. And they're chasing those men.
Yeah, the external validation, it at least soothes the internal conflict that they're dealing with. So instead of dealing with that internal conflict and finding purpose, they can at least soothe it through all the external validation.
Yeah, and I think what this, because that was the point I was trying to get to about the social media stuff, is it's not the social media creates the magnification, but what is it magnifying? It's magnifying the demoralization of meritocracy. As things get easier, we care about meritocracy less over time. Why? Because things are easy. So, and now we've got, certain groups pushing this idea that mediocrity should be glorified, right? And they don't advertise it that way. That's more or less what it is, the glorification of mediocrity, right? Or mediocrity. And that's where the idiocracy comes from.
But isn't that because if we accept mediocrity,
yeah,
we don't have to challenge ourselves, and we don't have to challenge our understanding of how to be better.
And that's why we all tend to agree with each other, even if we disagree on things, because we all agree that meritocracy matters. Merit matters more than our feelings and our opinions about things. And we understand that conflict can be resolved. This idea that you cannot resolve conflicts is another crux of a lot of issues, is that, if we're fighting, pick sides and everybody, arm up and we're fighting now. But nobody wants to entertain the idea that, hey, we could actually come to a consensus. We can actually talk this stuff out. It won't be easy, but it can be done.
Yeah, but that's not only based in meritocracy or mediocrity. It's also based in consumerism and materialism and the belief that everything has to be equal, even if it's not to the standard it was 20 years ago. Equality is more important than the value of standards and the value of merit.
Well, that's changing right now with everything that Trump's been doing. So I'm hoping that at least shifts the entire mindset that everybody has towards this.
Well,
But
should
our
men are back in charge. How's my mic now?
Okay, it's
good to
good.
go.
Okay.
Sounds very manly.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. I just wanted to go back a little bit to saying that I disagree with Glenn that my marriage has been way more satisfying than when I was single. Although I loved being single, I had good memories of it. There's just more when you have a good partner in life and a companion that you grow together and you share together. And there's just certain things you're not going to get with just a girlfriend. Now, can you get that without a government piece of paper? I believe you can. So if you make that commitment to each other and you being a man stand up with that conviction that you're going to live by that, yeah, I think you can eventually get there. I know that, like I've even told my kids, I don't know if it's worth getting married in today's age because it's so different from when I got married. Uh, I'm just learning this, listening to the problems you guys have with social media. When I met my wife, we bought our first computer a year or two after we were together, and I think all they had at that time was America Online, and it was hard to get. Even it was hard to get that then. Most we had was bulletin boards you would call into. So this before way social media and everything else. But um, I would say one of the problems with today is when we're talking about relationships and with women, when we're talking about love in general, we have one word that describes love, whereas in Greek, there's 5 words that describe love. And you, with those 5, in a good marriage, strong marriage, you'll have all 5 of those types of love. One of the words is phileo, which is more of a brotherly love. It's a conditional love. It's you do this for me, I do that for you. It's also translated as companion love. You can love you. We love our brothers here. That's phileo love. Then there's storge love, which is you would use that with family, like you love your kids. You know how you may love your girlfriend, but it's or your wife, but it's different than the way you love your kids or your mother. So then we have eros love, which is the erotic love, and had that quite a bit when I was single, and that was one of the good things about that. But I still have it. And then we have the unconditional love, which in Greek is called agape, which is a commitment love to love someone no matter what. No matter what. You're going to say, but what if she does it? Nope. It's no matter what. No matter what happens. Even when she leaves you and you're split up, your commitment was that you love her. That's agape love. That's a hard one. It's a very hard one, but that's that commitment. And when you have that, and you know that your woman has it for you, it's pretty comforting. Now, there's one more type of love that's talked about in, I think it's Hebrew or that this word, I forget the exact word, but uh, it's described as like a hand fits in a glove or a well-worn boot or shoe that once you have broken your own shoes, they fit very comfortably. No one else can wear them, and that's a type of love that's also talked about in marriage, that you're just comfortable, that is just it. Now, those are the benefits of being married, and you can have all the other benefits too, as long as you work it with the eros love. But having said that, with what I'm hearing today, I can't say I wouldn't be with you guys all the way on just keeping a girlfriend, because man, you guys got a lot more challenges than we had. You can't even afford a house unless you have a two person income, you know, It's
Yeah.
to have a traditional marriage is hopefully we change that with the economy. I mean, that's the golden age that Trump does want to help try to get back to, and that would be great if one. Can you imagine if we could get back where the man's income was like it was in the 50s before the women's movement to then double the amount of people available for work and cut the cost of employees in half? We could get back to that.
God.
Wouldn't that be
Dude,
fantastic?
It would be absolutely fantastic. And I just don't understand. Like, we fought for this equality. And then with that equality and with inflation and how everything else then moves alongside it, now you're kind of caught. And I think that's the struggle of man today, is to find a partner that truly is in it with you and can make it work. And now more than ever, it's important that we have these skills to be able to find those right women. And it's just the pool is it's just smaller because I don't know if it's necessarily how people are being raised, but women don't seem to like in the vast majority don't seem to have the same principles that are necessary for that stable relationship going onward.
You know, Vidar mentioned agape love, right? Which is the unconditional love. Do you think women are even capable of that? You know, because we do sort of assert in the red pill space that they tend to love opportunistically, and men more than anything love with that agape nature, that sort of unconditional love, the sort of fantasy fairy tale type love, and women are sort of in it for what's in it for them a lot of the times. Is that, what do you guys think about that?
I think
Personally,
all women want it.
I would say, and just this is my opinion, that I think women in their very nature love. I think they can get caught up because they're very social creatures. They can let their friends talk them into all kinds of stuff, which is horrible. In fact, that's one of the wonderful things about my woman is she never had girlfriends because she knows women. She would tell me they'll screw you over, you know. And so she's never had really close girlfriends. But with that, I would think by their nature, they're very loving and caring. I think for everyone that unconditional love is it's one to strive for. I think there's ways to get it. I think that can be talked about later, but for the most part, can you say you unconditionally love? I mean, if you ask in your marriage contract, what's the one thing that would split you guys up? The one thing.
It would be her cheating. That's it.
Cheating.
Literally, other than that, unconditional love.
Okay.
But that's the one thing you can't do.
But let me just tell you, that's not unconditional then. So I'm saying it's something we strive for. It's very hard to do, okay? But it's just like monogamy. We see the benefits of it, you know. It's great. It's a great idea, but in actuality, it's very hard to fulfill, you know. I mean, we are not monogamous like the animals that are monogamous, for sure. You know, we can see the benefits, just like you're saying you don't want her to cheat. You want her to be monogamous to you. Okay.
Yeah, we can do both. It's just like we're omnivores. We're not carnivores or herbivores. We're omnivores. We do both. Right?
Oh,
we're capable of both, but we can commit to one.
It takes that commitment. It takes that commitment, just like that unconditional love. But, you know, it's like I was talking with Glenn yesterday or the day before. You know, I was putting together a class kind of on things you can do in marriage, little tips to keep that marriage alive and good. And he had brought up a point that what I was saying, it sounded, it wouldn't apply to everyone. It would apply to only those people that have made that commitment. And that would be the first thing I would start when I'm telling these tips and tricks in this class to, is first of all, if you don't want to make that commitment, don't get married. Don't make that commitment. It's that simple, you know. But if you do, hey, here's some things that can help you along the way. Keep that marriage going. Keep things really thriving, and some rituals that would really help along the way. And but like I said, if you don't want to make that commitment, just don't make it. But be honest with yourself. You know, like I said, the unconditional love. As soon as you say, I have unconditional love for her, but, well, that one but, you're not, it's not unconditional anymore.
Well, yeah, I think
So-
I think a lot of times people don't understand that commitment
Mhm.
is something you make to yourself.
Mhm.
You know, and you can't go in and say we're in a committed relationship if you haven't made that commitment yourself.
Good point.
Okay, and too many people will live by an expectation of what the commitment is, in the sense that they have to receive that in turn. Okay,
Yep.
and that's not the way it works.
Mhm.
It's like honor and integrity. Those are things that you have to have, and those are things you have to enforce in yourself. You can't enforce them in other people, just like you can't enforce commitment into someone else. But you can enforce it on yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to be a fool and stay in a relationship that's hurting you. But you have to understand that as long as you've done everything you can do to fulfill that obligation and commitment, you're fine. You can walk away from it if they can't reciprocate. Any commitment between two people is a contract. And that contract has to have reciprocation. If it doesn't, then it's not a contract. And you're not obligated to that commitment. But you are always obligated to the commitments you make to yourself. And these standards that you hold yourself to. Your honor, your integrity requires that.
Hey, let me ask you a question too. You're right on all that. The commitment works both ways. And I'm not advocating, you know, even with the unconditional love, that's not an excuse to be cuckolded either. There's, you know, you can have unconditional love, but there's also repercussions. But with that, with just a little mind game, when you said you would have the one thing that would end it is if she cheated. What is it about the cheating that would make that end?
Betrayal.
The betrayal.
And when you think
Exactly.
about it, yeah. and
It's
when you think-
it's not is it the physical act?
no, absolutely not.
Okay, that's just what I was getting at. A lot of guys, they need to think about it because it's the betrayal. There was a movie, I think it was a fantastic movie that showed this two different thoughts of men and women. It's called Last Night. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it, but it's a guy. The premise is this: a guy's going to on a business trip, and they're at a business dinner. He's there with his wife, and the business partner that he's going with is a female. And the wife is noticing all these indicators of interest from this fellow employee of his that's going with him. And she is getting mad about it. And she talks to her husband that night and says, you know, she's going to try to have sex with you. Don't you dare do that. You don't have sex. Promise me you won't have sex with her. So he promises her. So they fly out, and this woman ends up seducing him. She wants to have sex with him. She even tells him during this, before, she says, I just want sex. It's just completely physical. There's no emotional involvement. I don't want any of that. I just want to have sex. So this is a man's thinking. He can do that. There doesn't have to be emotional attachment. So he goes ahead and does it. And then a little side note, after he does it with her, you can see, the woman's very good at acting this, you can see that she did have an emotional attachment with it. But that's a side story. But the next thing is, what he didn't know is as she dropped him off at the airport, she's leaving. And as she's leaving, as she's walking away, she runs into her lover that she had when she was 19 years old and in college, and on some European trip. And this reunion. He says, "Come, let's go talk." They go and they have coffee, and you can just see her indicators of interest. They end up going back to his place, and they start talking. Well, he tries to have sex with her. She stops him and she says, "No, I won't do that to my husband." But then she tells him this: "I have to tell you, you're the only man I've ever loved, and I never quit thinking about you." Bam. What he did to her is what would be the ultimate sin to her and her ultimate betrayal. Yet what she was going on there, man, it just strikes every man to the heart, just to the
Alpha
core,
widowed.
you know? And it's sad. I mean, but it showed that interpersonal dynamics and what we find okay and not okay compared to what women find okay and not okay. And that's just the point I was getting at. Just a little side note. It isn't the physical act. It's the betrayal, or it's the, you're being cuckolded. You don't know about it. You find out later, and then you find out the guy knows about it at the same time. You feel like he's gotten one over on you. I mean, these are the things that would just be, so hurtful to a man. And like you said, it's the betrayal. It's not the sex. I mean,
Well, like you said there, like men and women, they have a different idea of what's okay and what's not okay, right? They also have a different idea of what love is, and that's kind of where Rollo's Iron Rule 6 came into play, which was women are utterly incapable of loving a man in the way that a man expects to be loved. And like, once you understand that and you sort of understand that they just love differently than you do, like you can accept that and you can work with it. But a lot of guys, they have a hard time. They have a hard time understanding that women don't think the same way we do. They don't love the same way we do. It's just a different dynamic,
But isn't it interesting though, that when we think about what hurts people the most, it's not necessarily the physical acts, both for men and for women. It's the emotional thing. So as we just explained right there, it's the betrayal more so than the physical. And why, when a girl finds out that you may have cheated on her or done something else, do you love her? It's the same thing. We come from the same base root. And it comes down to that, as we were talking about, the commitment and the breaking of that contract.
Yeah. Yeah, if I can jump in here, Vidar, I don't want to be too long-winded, but I want to circle back to where you were talking about the different types of love. You brought up the comfortable love. I can't remember the Latin or Greek term you had for it. I think men are more adept to fall into the comfortable love faster than the female. And that can create that boredom that we talked about in the first part of the show. That when you're comfortable, you think, okay, now she's my one, she's not going anywhere, I'm comfortable with this. So you stop doing things like in the honeymoon phase and she gets bored. That's when you need to make sure that she's in that comfortable love as well, because if she's not, she's going to jump ship.
Yeah. Yeah, just and to tack onto that, that's why I have a book. because that guys do that. Like, we get comfortable. We were like, oh man, she like, what did Vidar say? Like an old shoe. My wife is like an old broken in shoe, and man, it's just like she's my best friend, but she's not fucking me anymore. I don't know why that is. It's like because you got boring and you got too comfortable, man. Like you've got to understand that in order to keep that spark alive, if you want her to keep fucking you anyway, you've got to keep working on bringing out that Eros love, right?
Yeah, that's really funny. That's comfort level is being comfortable in a relationship, and then ignoring all the other signs. It's not really what I'm talking about with that. That's not really what it's referring to. It's referring to here's an example. When I first got together with my wife, we had that excitement that your heart pitter patters every time you're around him. It's that almost that exhilarating adrenaline rush and excitement of the new. eventually that fades out. And that's where that comfortable love does need to take its place, not comfort level, but the comfort of that you just fit together. You're just, you know, you're,
Two peas in a
it's hard to
pod.
describe. Yeah, it's and you know you'll find out that you're thinking you start thinking alike after so much time. You'll even take on some of the same language and language patterns. That's what I'm talking about. You're right. If you get comfortable and you don't pay attention and you aren't taking care of all these other aspects, you're right. She's gonna quit fucking you. She's you know, I heard a doctor say one time when he was talking about middle-aged women and low libido and that they don't want to have sex anymore. He used to say it all the time. He says the problem usually isn't with her. The problem is usually the fat slob that's laying next to her, scratching his ass and farting and burping in bed next to her. You know, and he's got a point. You know,
we don't do that. What are you talking about?
No, you know, Vidar, I could definitely agree with that. And that, you know, brings up a good point. You know, as a man in a relationship, especially a committed relationship, if you find yourself in that comfortable love, maybe reassess the things that you're doing and try to not become boring. Let's just say that. Because I mean, it's a responsibility that we should take. And then also too, somebody said, you know, she's my best friend. Man, if you ever in a relationship where you're looking at your partner as your best friend, something's wrong.
Partner.
Oh, don't even.
Oh, sorry, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever, you know, your straight, you know,
your consort.
Your
but
consort.
I saw a comedian the other day, and he made a great point, even though it was funny as hell. And his wife asked him, "Are you my best? Am I your best friend?" And he said, "No." And she said, "Why?" And he was like, "Well, you don't like football because you can't understand the rules. You don't like golf because it's too slow. You don't like baseball because it's too fast. And nothing I like, you like, and I can't explain it to you. So no, you're not my fucking best friend." And I don't say it as funny as he does, but it made a lot of sense that, yeah, we're my best friends are who I go play golf with, who I watch football games and get drunk with and yell at the TV with. I don't do that with my girlfriend because she doesn't even like football. You know, so that way the best friend thing can be its own problem in a relationship. If you start looking at that, your girlfriend as your best friend as well.
That's how you end up in the friend zone in your own relationship. Yeah, you know, I saw a statistic once last year, and it was about how something like 60 or 70% of guys look at their wife, like if they're especially like older guys, and if you ask them, you'll say, "Hey, is your wife your best friend?" They're like, "Oh yeah, my wife's my best friend, totally." Right. And something only like 20 or 30% of women were like, "Oh yeah, my husband's my best friend." Like most women don't think of their husband as their best friend. They don't, you know.
Yeah, my woman, she's not my best friend. She's my biggest fan. Right. That's the reason why I love her so much, is because she saw through my false humility. Right. I know I've said it before, right? You know, I'm a very arrogant motherfucker, but I always downplay. And she was the one to first see through that I actually was a badass. She recognized me for what I was, even though I was downplaying myself all the time. Because I'm not as humble as I used to be. I used to be extremely humble. As Rolo says, self-deprecation is not game. I didn't know that back then.
I too am incredibly humble.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. I'm very confident.
You're right.
Yeah,
I'm very confident in my woman's love, because I know that if she does any of that stuff, if she cheats on me, does any of that stuff, that's because I fucked up, and I got to take that L.
Hey, you guys, you know, you've heard many guys say that behind every successful man is a good woman, and a lot of guys poo-poo that. But let's look at your situation that you just said right now. Women usually, it used to be, like I said, this whole social media and modern thing is different, but women used to marry men or go with men because of who they saw them becoming. Where men, we marry the women for who they are. And I think that has to do with value because a woman is intrinsically have value. Men, we have to build value.
Women still do
So
that.
They see us of where we're gonna, especially when you're young. They see you where you're gonna go. Now, the point I'm getting at is she saw his value, right? But not only did she see his value, and this is where that good woman comes in, is she helped him achieve that value. And that's a lot of time what it's meant when they said between every successful man is a good woman. It's when your woman is your biggest fan. She's the one that's your cheerleader and helping you and pushing you. And sometimes the one that tells you, hey, let's not do it that way. Maybe you need to look at this as sometimes a good confidant. Sometimes they're wrong, but it's good to have that. But like I said, she saw the value. She helped you achieve that value, and look where you're at now. That is a good woman, or a virtuous woman, like we want.
Let me say something on that, because a great example of that is Conor McGregor and his wife, that really supported him and helped him to create the fame that he had. However, she wasn't able to control some of those things. Like a good woman is able to contain, I guess, because I'm dealing with it myself. Contain the beast inside, like the biggest supporter, but also contain the beast inside. She was the biggest supporter for Conor McGregor. He became worldwide famous, but then she couldn't contain the beast inside, and he fell right back into some extremely destructive habits, and the guy's essentially ruined his career at this point. But I think that what you're saying is very important. You want her to be your biggest fan, but she should be a support. It's like I'm looking at too many Legos right now. It's like building a structure. Like, you are the core, you are the whatever is being built, but she should be the foundation. She wants to make sure that nothing ever goes wrong with what is being built out of it, if that makes sense.
My ex-wife is a great example of that. We a lot of times women can smell a man's a potential, right? Like sharks smell blood, and that is what attracts them to you a lot of the times. Like, even that's what I tell like younger guys, because there's a lot of guys that get caught up in the idea of women only want guys that have six figures and six-pack abs and all this stuff. And I'm like, you don't understand the power of potential, right? If a woman, like, if you're right now, you're mopping the floors at McDonald's, but next week you're on the fries, baby, and then you're going to be the manager someday, and that's where the real money is. Like women like to see a guy who sort of has that passion and drive to get to the next level. And if they see that, they will get behind you and they will encourage you and be your cheerleader. And my ex-wife was really good at that. In fact, when I got out of the Navy, and when I met her, I was in the Navy. When I got out, I was like, at first I was like, I want to go to college. I want to go to college. And then at some point I was like, I don't know if I want to go to college. And she was like, no, you're going to college, and she was going to college at the time. And I was like, I don't know. It seems like a lot of hassle. And she was like, no, I'll go with you. And she like walked me down to the enrollment office and, helped me through the enrollment process and all that kind of stuff just to get the ball rolling. And then when I was in college, and I was studying for what I wanted to be, which was getting into IT and stuff like that, she was really good at networking. And so she would, she had lots of friends and she would find people that were in the business, and she got me my first IT job and stuff like that. Right. She was very encouraging that way because she could see my potential. I just needed a little bit of a push. Right. And then now I'm, I would say like a lot of that I've learned over time to sort of internalize and have my own drive and ambition. But a lot of that was her pushing me in the beginning. And, I'm a really successful guy. And then when she left me, like, that all went away for her. That's her problem. But,
well, why would she leave you if she helped build you up?
Because I wasn't that guy anymore. I got too comfortable in the relationship. I gained 50 pounds. I stopped being.
Oh, dude, those photos.
There's lots of
those photos of you. Those photos of you that you shared before. I don't even recognize you, man.
Dude, I was a disgusting fat piece of shit by the time she left me. And it's like, well, no wonder she left. Like, when I look at it in hindsight, I wasn't continuing to be that guy, I got comfortable. I got too comfortable. I was like, I don't have to try anymore. You know, I'm making good money, you know, and I thought like, women only care about money. They don't just care about money. There's lots of things.
They actually don't care about money at all. Like, I think that that's something that could be controversial here, but that's true. They do not care about money at all. They care about how their life experience feels. They care about the journey.
Yeah.
So
You
you
care about what they can do with the money.
Well, a lot of the qualities that a typical man that acquires resources needs, right? Like confidence, ambition, drive, like all that kind of stuff. They find that stuff attractive. It's not the money itself, you know.
Exactly.
And so when you get to a place where like, yeah, I got the money, but I don't have any more confidence and drive and ambition, and I'm letting myself go, and I'm dressing like a slob all the time, and I'm farting and burping, right? Like Vidar says,
shitting the bed.
It's fucking unattractive, and they don't want to fuck you anymore, and then they leave, and then guys complain that 80% of women file for divorce. You know, it's like,
and that's why when let me speak on this, and that's why Taro, I know you're going to argue with me on this when it comes to the money thing. That's why when they have girls come on Fresh and Fit, or they have any of these types of shows or interviews, and the girls say he needs to make X amount of money, the reason why they're saying that isn't because they care about the money. What they care about is, okay, if they're making this much money, they have to be this level of a leader, as Paul was saying. They have to have these competencies that come along with it for him to be able to have gotten there.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you at all on that. I've been saying that. A lot of guys get it twisted. They think it's about the looks, money, and status. No, it's about the culmination of all of those things and the mindset behind it that got him there. And so success leaves clues. If you make a lot of money, you usually have to be pretty assertive and dominant to achieve that in some capacity. So it's that social proof that girls always bet on. It's like, okay, so he's got all these traits based on that. It's an inference. They make an inference and they'll say, oh, he needs to have this and that. Guys aren't listening to the womanese. Shout out to Donovan Sharp. You know, the womanese of that, like you're pointing out, Huds, is that they say the surface part. And guys being logical are like, well, that's the numbers. Like, this is logical. But what's the emotion behind it? What's the lifestyle that they're looking for? They want a man that's going to put them in their place most of the time and go along for the ride. They don't want to be in the driver's seat. They want to ride shotgun.
It reminds me of when I went to Universal. Was it Universal? Yeah. Down in Florida, I had won a trip, and so I took my girl down there, and when we rode Hagrid's the motorcycle one, you guys ever seen that?
No, we don't spend. I don't spend a lot of time in amusement parks.
Oh, right. But this it's fun. So for those Harry Potter fans, Hagrid's Wild Ride, essentially there's two carts. Like, they're attached, the whole thing's attached, but there's one with the motorcycle and there's one with the sidecar. And it's always a non-discussion. Like, it's always me in the driver's seat and her in the sidecar. It's exactly that. They want to come along for the ride. They don't want to drive the car.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't mind taking the driver's seat if they have to, or if they want to for a little bit of fun,
or if it's necessary, especially if you have a strong relationship. Yes.
Oh yeah. That's so true. But you know what people don't see, or guys don't see, even when they get in that comfort or that they feel comfortable, if they're not driving anymore, a woman out of necessity will start driving. She will take up the lead. If you're not going to lead, somebody's got to lead, and she will take over and start leading. So you're right, but she doesn't want to. That is true. At least
she doesn't want to, and she can only do it for so long.
Women. I want to say there are some women who get it in their head that's what they want.
But I use the one word that no one else used. Women want leadership.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple. They don't want to be your mom.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want you to be their dad, but they want a leader.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you have to step away from treating them like a father to treating them like a woman.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't treat them
to
like
that
your
point too, Vidar. Like, sometimes they won't step up and lead. They will find somebody else that will lead.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. That is a very good point. That that's a very good possibility.
Just look at the family structure. How's the family structure?
Mhm.
Okay. I'm talking about the nuclear family now. So, but how's it structured? You have a leader. You have, and that leader handles the overall corporation. He's the CEO. Then you have the board, which is her, which handles all the people underneath.
And then your other girlfriends, part of the board. No, I'm just making a joke.
Look, I got enough crazy with one woman. I don't need two.
That's how I feel. When you guys tell me they want this harem or they want multiple wives, oh, God bless you.
I don't know.
I-
Spinning plates I found was easier than dating one woman at a time, but that it's a much different situation when you're living with all of them, I guess, right?
Boy, that would be a
Well-
challenge, but
Yeah.
But
No.
see,
Yeah,
spinning plates is different because when you're spinning plates, what are you doing? You're open and honest about everything you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's casual dating, really.
When you're in a marriage or a relationship, all right, that's when the betrayal comes into play. So that causes you problems.
Mhm.
All right. And
Well,
so I haven't, I mean, I've been in relationships where I've dated multiple women. They all knew I was dating them. And that was fine because I wasn't serious and they weren't serious about any long-term relationship. But when I go into a relationship like with my wife now, there's a commitment. All right. And that commitment, I'm going to honor my side of the commitment. And she is supposed to honor her side. The other thing is I don't need some crazy woman calling me at 2:00 in the morning, getting the one person that I'm sleeping with who may have a knife beside the bed upset.
You're bringing back memories. I mean, where this all started when I wanted to do this show, I had sent that message to you guys. Like I remembered the crazy squirter from back in college, and that just reminded me. She called me 59 times one night because I wasn't picking up my phone, and it was just because I didn't want to be around her. So
you
yeah,
didn't. That's not crazy. I've
That's
had
not crazy?
worse. I've had worse. Yeah. There's
No,
you got to watch the cycle once.
But
I had one that was calling me constantly. As soon as I'd hang up the phone, or as soon as I'd pick it up, dead. Then I hang it up, call again, just out, over and over and over. So finally, I just took the phone off the hook, went about my day. Came out about 10 hours later. Actually, I'd unplugged it, plugged my phone back in, and it was ringing.
oh my
Picked it up,
god,
still dead again. That's crazy. But
Yeah.
Going back, talking about the dating scene, and
I think.
and you
Well,
guys
hold
are
on.
talking
I think Wraith, did you have something you wanted to finish? Right?
no, I was just going to say, from a standpoint of when you talk about relationships and you talk about all this stuff and what women want, one of the biggest fallacies or problems that guys create for themselves is, they don't maintain, I'm going to use the word frame in the relationship, and they allow there to become gray areas between what their responsibilities are and what the responsibilities of the woman or wife or girlfriend is. And there's going to be crossover. If it's an emergency and she's got to drive somewhere, that's stuff that happens, and you'll readjust and you'll pull frame back. But overall, when guys get comfortable, they get comfortable in allowing themselves to be lazy. It's not comfort with what she's doing. It's not comfort for anything other than they're not challenging themselves. They've lost their frame. And frame isn't to maintain her. Frame is to maintain you. And when you're not maintaining yourself, people are going to take advantage.
I love that. Frame is not about maintaining her or maintaining your reality. It's about maintaining you. Wow.
yeah,
That
it's
hit me
self-leadership.
heavy.
Like you said before, Wraith, the way that women want leaders, but what kind of leaders? They want a man that can lead himself to success, right? They don't need a man that's leading her, right? That's her, you being daddy, right? You just tell her what the expectations are, as Rolo says, comply or goodbye. You're going to do what I need you to do as part of the team, as the board, or I'm going to fire you, That's simple. And it's not a matter of falling in and out of love. It's a matter of, pragmatic, just understanding the reality of the situation, right? Like you said, it's a relationship is more or less a contract, and we're in it to win it. And if you're not in it to win it with me, then I'm going to find somebody who will.
Yeah.
And
Then
she
what are
should
we
be the
even
same.
doing?
The same concept as with boundaries, right? Boundaries aren't for her. Boundaries are what you will accept, and she either gets in line or you cut her loose, that's what that's what boundaries are for, right?
Yeah. Boundaries are literally like, all right, we're going to play soccer today. But she wants to play field hockey. And it's like, okay, well, like we're not in the same field. We're not in the same court. Like it doesn't work. Like we need to move as a unit, not in separate directions. I think that's really what it comes down to.
And Thor and I talked about this in a couple of conversations that we've had, even on here. There's a difference between being dominant and being domineering.
Yes.
Okay. Way too many young men think that frame is an exhibition of domineering, and it's not. That's one of the problems. People don't. Too many young men don't understand frame. They don't understand boundaries. They don't understand standards because they live by the social norms of what those are. What is current frame? If you talk about equity, everybody's the same. Everybody should be progressing at the same and have the same things. That's bullshit. Okay, same thing with boundaries. Well, boundaries are there, but is it really there? It brings all this gray area into who you are as a man, what your beliefs are, what your values are. Because the biggest problem in society today is we practice relativism, not only in our religions, we practice relativism in our entire lives. How does it make me feel? I don't give a shit how it makes anyone else feel. I care how it makes me feel from a standpoint of, am I doing the right thing at all times? If I'm not, then I'm not a use to myself, and I'm not a use to anyone else. When you bring someone into your life, you're not forcing them to live in your frame. They're living in your frame because they want to be there, because it adds value to their life. And if you're not adding value to their life, you shouldn't be in a fucking relationship. Because then you're gonna be domineering and not have a dominant masculine presence, not be a dominant male.
And another thing I'll add to that too, Wraith, is men inherently we have a burden of performance, and that means that our job in the relationship is to always be working on ourselves, being a man worth keeping, right? And it's women's job. If you look at Breitbolt's law, it's their job to want to keep you if you're worth keeping. But if you don't want to do the work to be a man worth keeping, then relationships just aren't for you, man.
And I want to go way back to the store thing, but when Thor said men care about attraction. Men's attraction is multi-level. It's not just the physical. It's not how they look. It's how they present themselves. What value that you can interpret from how they present themselves. I'll date a good 5, 2, 3, 4, as long as she's got everything else I want.
Yeah, people undervalue, and that's what we're going to kind of talk about, the unrealistic expectations that men have at times. We're going to kind of shift to the wife store, but before we do so, if you need to fix your relationship, Paul does have a pretty good book on this.
Are you tired of the dead bedroom? Wondering what happened to the passion, the connection, and the spark? Well, here's your answer. Introducing Get Her to Fuck You Again, a red pill guide to fix a dead bedroom, now on Amazon. This isn't about manipulation or tricks. It's about real strategies that work. If your wife has stopped being intimate with you, it's not because the love is gone. It's because the attraction is gone. And that's fixable. This book will teach you the skills to lead your marriage, rebuild your confidence, and become the man she can't stop thinking about. 3 reasons to get this book. 1. It breaks the cycle. You'll learn how to stop doing the same things that are killing her attraction and start doing the things that reignite it. 2. It's practical and proven. With clear, actionable steps, you'll build yourself into the man you were always meant to be. 3. It works for men like you. Paul Bauer has helped hundreds of men just like you fix their dead bedrooms. And now, it's your turn. Don't let another day go by feeling frustrated and disconnected. Go to Amazon right now and buy Get Her to Fuck You Again. Read it, apply it, and watch your marriage transform. The connection isn't gone forever. You just need the roadmap to get it back. And this book is it.
The audio, the audible version of that is selling like hotcakes. People are really going for the audio. Yeah, which I narrated myself, by the way.
Hey, there we go. It really is crazy how it kind of happens, and I think that in this joking manner from this initial article that I'm going to bring back up here, what this author does is they turn it into the wife store, and this explains why men become lazy. Okay, so when we talk about the wife store, the first floor has wives who love sex. The second floor has wives who love sex and are kind. The third floor has wives who love sex, are kind, and like sports. The 4th, 5th, and 6th floors have never been visited. You don't require a lot. Like you got to be attractive. You got to bring. I mean, there's a couple different ways that I've kind of written it out myself, but we just want them to be attractive. We want them to be feminine. We want them to be respectful. We want them to bring peace, and that they care. Like that's it. It's that simple. And the attraction thing almost gets knocked down a peg. That's why us as men are willing to settle down with like a 5 or a 6, no problem, as long as because she raises herself up in the other qualities. We don't ask for much, but it's a double-edged sword. By not asking for much, once we get what we're looking for, then we fall into that laziness.
Yeah, that was the mistake that I made by trying to do the whole 50-50 thing in the relationship, is that I put my girl in the driver's seat half the time. She didn't like it. And I also didn't ask her. I didn't tell her what I wanted. My communication was bad, right? So I would tell her things, but I would do it in the, mannies, right? Where I'm just being direct and logical and expect her to just comply and get along with it, right? Well, I was also slacking off, let myself get fat, right? And stuff like that, right? So I wasn't worth following. But after I changed that and started asking for more from her, I was shocked, because she is my #1 fan, and she's even shocked, right? She often doesn't believe in herself. I'm the one that empowers her. The left always talks about, well, we need to empower women. Yeah, I empower my woman. I teach her how to do things. I teach her that she can do more and that she can achieve when everybody put her down.
Patriarchy.
Misogyny.
No, but that's so true. That's so true, Joel. I love that because that's the truth. That's what I like. That's what my relationship is like myself. I empower her, and through empowering her, she's better able to empower me. And it's this cycle, and this perfect yin and yang that brings us both up.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I think a vast majority of guys would it would blow their minds, if they ended up finding an adjustable 7 that had all the qualities that we talked about, right? And when I say an adjustable 7, it's like, she's what guys might call mid, but if she puts in a little effort with like her clothing and her makeup and puts her hair in curlers, now she's now she's looking more like a 9. It's like she puts a little effort in and she looks a little bit hotter. But man, it's one thing too. I'll also tell guys is a woman who is hot now that didn't used to be hot. Like maybe she was a little bit overweight in high school, like an ugly duckling, kind of a nerdy girl in high school, and then she had a glow up later in life. She actually had to learn to have a bit of a personality and be pleasant with people to get things right, because girls who have been hot their entire lives have just been handed shit. Like no one's ever told them no a goddamn day in their life, and they just sort of expect things, and they have shitty personalities. So those are the types of things like you need to look for when you're out in the dating circuit. Like what kind of girl is this really, and like how she treats you is way more important than how she looks at the end of the day.
Oh my God, yeah.
Princess syndrome.
Yeah, I'd like to tell young men, okay, because I do counsel a lot of young men. Don't start your life or start this journey with the expectation that you're going to have a harem.
Yeah.
Okay. Because here's the reality of it. There's probably roughly 5% of the women that would live in those situations. And you're not the 1% of the men that can command that. Be realistic with your own expectations of yourself and what your expectations are from what you want from other people. Now, if you grow to that point where you're the 1% of the men that can command the 5% of the women that are willing to do that, that's fine. But if you set that as your goal right off the bat, you're going to fail. Because you're trying to live beyond your current capabilities. That doesn't mean that you can't grow and develop those skill sets and develop those capabilities. But there's nothing like getting beat down every day by not living up to the expectation you have for yourself. You didn't come out of the womb thinking you were going to walk. You crawled first, then you leaned on a table to learn balance, and then you took that first step. The journey to self-discovery and change is the same way.
It's very well said. And I think, go ahead, Fighter.
I was going to say, I agree with that for sure. Now, the guys that I've met that do have a harem, or they have these sister wives, one guy in particular who had sister wives, he had 4 wives, and I think they were all about 2 on the look scale. So I think he thought he had an 8 after he had that. But I don't even know if they had great personalities, and this is something that he dealt with. Nothing that I wanted. And then I've met another guy who basically, he had one, I guess you would call it an alpha pair. Him and his main woman, then she was bisexual. They would go out and get other girls and bring them in, and they would live with them. But they were always in and out. There was never he would have 2, sometimes 3 women, or he would have at least 2 other women, sometimes 3. But like I said, they were never, they'd stay around. I think the most I saw was a couple years with one, and then they would move on to other women. It wasn't a harem issue. So I have never really met anybody that has quite a harem where they stick around and stick together, except the one guy who was and he pretty much had them convinced on a religious or cult level with the sister wives that he had. So I don't know if you definitely, like Wraith was saying, don't fool yourself thinking you're going to have a harem. And then the second thing the point I was trying to get at, even if you did, you've got to really be honest of what that life looks like, because it doesn't look like what most guys think it would, where you're just the man and all these women are worshiping you. Haven't seen that in my experience, but I don't know. What do you guys say?
No,
Well,
I
it's more
have 4 or 5
responsibility.
friends that have multiple wives, and they're the most miserable guys I know.
There you go.
I can barely deal with one, like multiple. Gosh.
But do you think
That's
Wraith,
the thing.
do you think it's a skill issue though? right? Like if you had, good solid frame, good relationship management skills and stuff like that, do you think it would be easier, or do you think like the average guy right now can't maintain his current marriage, right? Like he doesn't know how to manage his one wife. And so if you add 3 more wives to that, it's just going to be a fucking nightmare.
I think it for the 2 of the guys I know, it's leadership issues. Okay, they're good at one-on-one with each one of their wives, but they can't control a group dynamic. And there's constantly infighting between. He has 4 wives. There's constantly infighting between the wives. They'll gang up, depending on what the topic is. They'll gang up on each other. So that's for both those guys. One's 3, one's 4 wives. It's leadership. They don't have the ability to lead their families the way that they need. The other 2 guys, they just kind of fell into it, and there's this constant change in hierarchy of the females based on what his individual or I'm talking about 2 guys, so it's their individual wants and desires are. If you just watch the Zero Sister Wives, that whole thing fell apart because he had the inability to lead. He chose sides. He picked favorites. And, it was, I told, my wife watches the show. I told her, I said, he's going to fail. This was 4 years ago. And now they're all divorced. And the one that he's still married to is thinking about divorcing him because she wanted to live in a plural marriage where there was leadership. So I don't want to spend as much time leading my family as I have to spend at work leading. They pay me to do it at work. And with the family, it's supposed to be a labor of love.
Yeah.
And if you hate the labor, you shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah. And the thing is, as a leader, the more people you have following you, the more responsibility you have, because they're all individuals and they all need individual attention. But they also, like you said, that you need to not pick favorites as much. Right. One of the frameworks I gave my girl, because she knows that, my end is open. Right. I told her, like, when we bring other girls in, like, there's the order that we met. Right. So there's a pecking order, if you will, that, you're the first, and then there's going to be a second, possibly, and maybe a third. Right. But I'm not going to pick favorites. I'm not going to let you play sides. And you need to understand, you're going to jockey for position. You're going to feel some type of way about it. This is unavoidable because we're human beings. So you being interested in women, though, and wanting to try this with me, it is a journey of discovery. So, and she's learning, but that's the basic framework that I give her, because I've seen the same thing. I saw the same thing in the BDSM community and stuff like that. The same stuff that you guys are talking about, where, it's either really low value individuals. I'll try to be polite, tactful, or, people that don't really got their shit together. But then there's those few small like nuggets where there's people that actually make it work. And yes, I believe it is a skill issue, because it goes back to what we talked about before. It requires proper leadership.
And not everybody is capable of being a leader. And I think that's a very important thing to hone in on, because I've seen just throughout my life becoming more of a leader of not just men, but of companies and whatnot, and moving up the ranks and things. You got to learn the skills first. And that's why I think that we always, and men deal with this issue, they put the cart before the horse. And that's where those like higher expectations are, where they want the super hot girl that's super subservient, but like they're not even focusing on the actual connection that they're having with the person. I'm not into the whole harem thing, and I never really want to be. Personal choice, I guess. But I make sure that these puzzle pieces that are going on match. And if anything is going a little bit off, we make sure to course correct. I shared with you guys, recently. Like we had an argument because my girl took a job where she's doing a hell of a lot more, and she's working like almost 24/7. It's like ridiculous, and we got to get her out of there. But she's just been neglecting all the duties that she should be doing, and that is the reason why I chose her. So like, if she's not doing the cooking, not doing the cleaning, like, okay, let's get you back down to where you feel comfortable. So I think that that's the most important thing, is to, one, meet people where they are, but two, make sure that you're the right leader to do it the right way. A lot of men, unfortunately, that's why we have the alpha, beta, gamma, sigma, like all the different types of things. Not all men are alphas. Not all men are leaders, but you can still be a leader in your own.
You can learn it though. You
can
learn it. I would, man, if you're going to read a couple of books that are phenomenal on leadership, I would recommend Jocko Willink's books, Extreme Ownership and The Dichotomy of Leadership. And one of his sort of mantras from those books is there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. And that's all about taking accountability for your job as being the leader and stuff like that. But I think a lot of that, like I said earlier, when I was asking Wraith about that, it's a skill issue, and you can learn it. It's just, are you willing to? A lot of guys.
It's hard too, because when you try and learn it, as later in life you become, you really got to adapt it into your personality, and it takes longer and longer the older you get. And I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with settling into where you are. But if you're looking for something like that, then yeah, it's a skill issue. You got to work on it.
Well, I only brought that up because as we talk about the wife store and men's expectations, there was a Dirty Harry movie. I can't remember which one it was, but he says a man ought to know his limitations. A lot of guys don't know their limitations. They're not
Damn it.
Self-reflected enough to find out what those limitations are and how they can exceed them if they want to. But they're not even reflected enough to find out what they are. And it's frustrating for me as a coach for a man to come to me and he say, "Hey, these are your limitations," and they don't believe me. I'm not trying to hold them back. I'm trying to explain to them, these are the things you have to think about before you.
Yeah, you're pointing out the weak points.
Right. But you do that one time and they're like, yeah, this isn't the guy I want because he's not telling me what I want to hear. But like I said, I and I'm sure Paul does too. I've coached a lot of men. And Vidar's done this through his coaching. I've coached a lot of men that have unrealistic expectations. And it's not that they couldn't achieve them, but you have to understand where you're at before you know where you're going to go.
I think we have a serious problem nowadays where people can't look themselves in the mirror. And like going back to what Paul's done with fixing dead bedrooms, look yourself in the mirror. Would you fuck you? Yeah, and so that's just a huge issue that I think that guys have. I don't know if it's just ego or what, but
I'm just thinking about how every morning I get up and I'm flexing, going, "I'd hit that. I'd hit it."
Oh yeah, Buffalo Bill every day.
That's all that humility that both Paul and I have.
I'm extremely humble. I forgot to tell you guys about that again.
Oh, really? Wow, that's news.
Hey, if you wanted,
before we get too far past the point, I want to ask you guys that. I want to go back to the whole multiple wives, multiple girlfriends dynamic. It's not for me. I would never want to try to please more than one woman at a time. Do you think that it's possibly or imperative that, okay, say one man wants to date two women? For it to be successful, those two women have to care for each other and love each other just as much as they love me for it to work. So there is not that infighting. So basically they have to be bisexual is what I'm saying.
No,
Do
they
you
have to
think
love
that would have to be almost a prerequisite for it to actually
No.
be successful?
No, they have to
Absolutely
love
not.
you.
They don't
They
have
have
to
to
be
love you.
bisexual.
They have to love you more
Yeah.
than they could ever possibly love each other.
Okay.
Yeah. Now,
Yeah.
now in
Just something
terms
I was
of
thinking about,
intercourse, yes, that is a require. You know, if you're all going to have intercourse, then of course that would be a prerequisite. But if you're just planning on, say, having multiple relationships where you independently have intercourse, or you're having multiple families, then no. That, like they said, I would assume that they would just need to love you. But I do think that they would need to have some, appreciation or love for each other as well, because otherwise you get that infighting. And once
Yeah,
again, if you're not a leader that can manage that, then you're going to have a bad, as the South Park, bit went, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
almost it's almost like you're the shiny object, and they have a shared passion for that shiny object, and you got to make sure that they're capable to not fight over the shiny object.
Yeah, they both have to be your fan. Like I said, my girl's my biggest fan, and I would just be looking for another girl that was a big fan of mine and also liked my fans, right? As metaphorically speaking,
Mhm.
but you get the premise.
That's a good, you know what? That's a really good way to put it. So, what I do and what we do here when we talk about these types of things, not all girls like this content. They don't like us doing this. So, it reminds me of an old girlfriend who didn't want me to do this. And then now that I'm doing it, like my girl's supportive on it, that's a proper fan. Whereas the other girl, even though she was a fan of me, she wasn't a fan of everything about me. That's a key point to kind of think about.
Oh, I had that too before I met Nurse Chick. I was dating a gal for like a couple months that I call Marine Corps Chick, who was actually on my podcast in the early days. If you guys go back and look at the archives, Marine Corps Chick fucking hated this shit. She hated the concept of red pill and teaching guys like game and all that kind of stuff. And she thought it was toxic, and we only lasted a couple months. And I was like, this isn't working out, But Nurse Chick, on the other hand, like right after we started dating, like she internet stalked me because I was being a mystery and I wasn't putting everything out there. And so it got her curious. She started looking on the internet and going down rabbit holes, and she found my TikToks and podcast. And like, I think on our fourth date or something like that, I remember her being at the house and just randomly bringing up hypergamy out of nowhere. No one talks about that. And I was like, okay, that's oddly specific. Like regular people don't talk about that shit, And so I was like, I put out a video the next day saying, has anyone ever said anything that's so oddly specific that that the internet stalked you? And I got a text 30 minutes later going, I have a confession to make. I found your TikToks. I found your podcasts.
Oh my God.
Now she tunes into all the different live streams. She's usually the first person in the chat. She loves this stuff.
Yep.
And
that proves the point, though.
And it's
Discovery
inspired
trumps
her to work
disclosure.
on herself.
Yeah.
Hey, when you guys find a relationship where they have where a guy has 2 or 3 wives, where they all love him and they're all pursuing him, and it's a happy relationship like you guys are talking about, let me know, because I've never seen it.
Yeah,
I've seen
most of the time, I don't mean to cut you off. Most of the time I find that the person that's doing that, he's empty inside and he's trying to fulfill something that he has not fulfilled himself.
Yeah, like I was saying, the most successful one that I saw wasn't really, they weren't didn't have sister wives. I would say he kind of had a harem, but as them being the alpha pair, she was definitely very bisexual, and they would bring other women in to their relationship. Like I said, they would sometimes a year, sometimes 6 months, sometimes it was the flavor of the week, and they would have sometimes two women with them, so he'd have 3 women, and they seemed to have a good time. Now, I didn't follow up with them. I knew them for a couple of years, but I didn't follow up with them on the rest of their life, what it was like. But he was definitely a leader type guy, and he had found the right woman who was with them. And like I said, I would consider them out of the whole group, and I think I've seen this in a lot of this new polyamory. The only time I've ever seen it work is to some extent is when you do have an alpha pair that are the group pair and they bring other people in. But
Right.
bottom line is anybody else is not going to separate that commitment between that alpha pair. And even when those guys bringing these women in, there was never, in fact, I think that the wife or the main woman, when if one of the other women started going a little bit too much towards him, I think she would put an end to it. So I think, and again, we're going to one more thing real quick. When we talk about that and we talk about separate lives, I just wanted to bring that back to the 5 different types of love that I was talking about earlier. Very hard to have all 5 of that. And in fact, I would go on and say maybe between that alpha pair I'm talking about had it, but when they brought the other girls in, they were not in that same category. Maybe maybe morely the erotic love.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's sexual. It's
it's highly sexual
relationships. You know.
Let me speak. Let me speak on this, guys. Let me speak on this. So with Fastback GT, I appreciate the comment here. So the 2012 study article showed that 60% of women are bisexual to a good degree. They didn't explain numerically what to a good degree is, but the point on this is that women are fluid. Okay, understand that their emotions drive everything. They're fluid in sexuality because they're fluid to the leader of the group, whether that be the leader as a man or whether it be the leader in their friend group, the queen bee, so to say. So that's something very important to take into consideration. They are always looking for that leader, that driving force that's going to take whatever that energy, that emotion down the correct river. So that's why it's so high. And I don't know if you guys have ever done the experiment of asking girls, like, have you ever kissed a girl? I would say it's more than 60%, 7 times. Well, it depends on if she's comfortable to actually tell you the truth. I would say at least 6-7 times out of 10, they would say yes. And I can look at this panel and I can ask you guys, although I don't know about some of you guys, Paul, but I don't think you guys have ever kissed another man, right?
No.
You didn't experiment in middle school, right?
No.
Mm-mm.
I'll say this: all women, 100% are bi. It's just you got to figure out if it's bisexual or bipolar.
Yeah, I didn't know that one. By the way.
Or most
Well,
of
there's another study that Myron talks about on the Fresh and Fit podcast all the time, where they I can't remember which study it was, but it was a university study, and they put straight men, gay men, and women in a, like, they hooked them up to like a button. They got a button, and then they had probes attached to their genitals where they could see
I know exactly
what
what
their
you're
actual
talking about.
arousal was, and they were supposed to click the button every time. They would show them images, and then they were supposed to click the button every time they got aroused. And then they compared, and they found out that straight men, when they saw heterosexual images, yep, they clicked the button and it matched the genitals. Gay men, same thing. They saw something they liked. They saw a dude's dick. They clicked it and matched the genitals. Women, they would click for only the safe, like, hetero stuff, but everything they showed, including animals having intercourse, would trigger the genitals. So that's the scientific explanation right there, that women are highly erotic because, as Ray said before, they kind of love by default, right? And that in a variety of ways, and that's who they are by nature.
Well,
so once again, they all are bi to some degree, and that's why, because they're visually stimulated by all forms of love.
I would have to say, I don't think it's the visually stimulated. It's the emotional stimulation of even an animal mating. It's the idea where we men, when I was younger and single, I bought a magazine that was nothing but pictures of vaginas. There were nothing but that, right? And I was aroused by it. Women do not buy a book of just dick pics. They don't get aroused by pictures when you send them. And guys, I hate to break this to you, but when you send your dick pic, you're not going to turn them on. They are not going to get aroused by that. They would
Never.
probably get more aroused by animals having sex and you just throwing your dick pic out there. Unless, I mean, you're
Because what it's doing, it's showing
hung.
the action. It's painting the picture. Women, it's about the journey. It's about painting, and that's why, like, I love and I think that, like, just as I look around, like all the different Legos and stuff that I have. I mean, hell, look at this that I got back here. Just throwing things together. I got a fucking GameCube behind this Futurama Planet Express ship with Doc Ock fighting Spider-Man, like all this type of stuff. You're painting in her brain. That's what women respond to. Painting a story. So it
Yeah,
doesn't
and
matter what that story is, but a dick pic is not painting anything.
Yeah, they're not.
dick
They're,
pic
they
while
don't
you're
process the visual stimulation the same way we do. Don't get it twisted. That's not what I was saying about the study. Is that they see the visual and their brain does interpret it differently. But as you said, yes, it's more the scenario revolved around the action rather than the thing itself.
Well, you've got to look at a couple different things. Okay, men tend to base attraction on physiological or physio sexual standpoints. Women tend to base attraction on psychosexual standpoint. So any form of sexual dominance, whether it's male on male, female on female, animal on animal, whatever, they see a dominance in that. There's always a dominance feature, and that's how they view their sexuality. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't outliers where you have, women that are more masculine and want to dominate other women, but it's still a dominance. Men are attracted basically from a physical standpoint. When we look at a woman, we're looking at physical indicators. It's the same thing as if you look at it from a visional standpoint. Men are looking at women that are going to give them healthy children, and women are looking for men in some sense that can provide healthy children and support. So when it comes to the physical side of the woman looking at the mate, it's more dominance and support. For men, it's more physical and physical outcome for children.
Yeah, it's completely different how we view it, and it needs to be understood. What kind of sucks about it is that for us, like, we know when we see a girl, those, like, when they say, like, in the pickup artist type of stuff, like, you see a girl and you get that initial attraction, you got like 3 seconds to make a move. Well, you get the emotion immediately. You get that attraction immediately. That is not necessarily the case for women. Women see the social interactions that you're having with others, and that's what really makes them attracted. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, back in high school, going to, like, high school parties, and we always formed small groups.
So let me ask you a question. Since you said that, and I'm going to ask the question in the form of correction. All right. When you look across the bar and you see a woman, you say, "Man, I'd really love to have a conversation with her." No, you say, "I'd like to fuck her."
I'd like to fuck her. I never say I would really like to have a conversation with her.
It's not an emotional thing with you. It's total physical attraction. All right. Understand that. We are looking at, this is what I want to conquer, or bed, or whatever term you want to use. All right. And there's a reason for that. Because when you look at her, you see all the indicators that she's going to produce a child for you that's going to be equal to or above her in looks, attraction, and all that stuff. Okay, women aren't like that. You walk up to a woman, if you have a good personality, you might be able to talk your way into her pants. All right, because you're hitting those emotional cues that she needs hit. All right, you may not be the best looking guy, as long as you're not a troll dragging your hands across the floor as you get there. she's going to say, okay, I'll give him that opportunity. That's why it takes longer, because she's not keying in 100% on physical attributes. She's keying in on everything around you and what your whole picture is. For men, most it's, I want to do that. All right. And that's what I'm saying. But women that are physically attracted right away, they're attracted by the ability of that man to be dominant. Most guys with big muscles, or let's say at least the norm these days is the swimmer body. Most guys with a swimmer body can get laid as long as their face ain't tore up, because there's physical dominance in that ability.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's just interesting how we pre-select based on physical, they pre-select based on social, and the social reading takes a little bit longer. That's all right,
Absolutely. You know, that's absolutely when I started teaching my kids male female interdynamics, that you might call the game. It wasn't that they could go and be my boys so they could go out and be pickup artists. In fact, it was for the fact that they could be able to use some psychology to get a woman to drop her guard so that they could actually have conversations, and they could then choose which woman that they want to pursue, rather than being with the first woman that gives them a smile. And, you know, I think even women today, I know in my day, it was definitely that. Women, if you have an attractive woman, even at my wife's age and in her mid-50s, if she leaves by herself, she's still hit on because she's an attractive woman. And when younger, it's all the time. So these women are used to that. They build up these defense mechanisms so that as soon as a guy comes out and he presents himself as one of these guys picking up on her, they put up this block and they're done. They don't want anything to do with him. Could even be a attractive guy that they saw and may have thought that, but immediately, oh, he's a creep, and put up this this mechanism. And that's where a lot of that interpersonal dynamics between male female, or the game, was able to, through a use of different techniques, drop that so that they could be able to then get to know women that they wanted to know. But that is the absolute truth, that men are attracted to the physical. We're very optically, we see something pretty and sexy, we're attracted towards it. We can see a picture and get attracted to it. Where women, they look at that path. They look at a lot of different things, or the idea. If you ever listen to a women's fantasies, a lot of times it's the a fantasy of being in a cabin in the woods with a bearskin rug in front of a fireplace. You know, where guys, they get right down to the physical act of what they find in the fantasy, and that just shows again the difference. Women have the idea, men have the physical. What they see, they want.
And that's what, when you go back to early pickup, when they were peacocking and stuff like that,
Mhm.
that was all an effort to interrupt the mind, or
Yep.
the thought process. It
Mhm.
wasn't. It was that she's seeing something she's never seen before.
Mhm.
Okay, and now that bridges that barrier between the 1,000 guys before him. So this is different. So it must be. Let's explore the difference, I guess, the best way to put it. It's the same thing with doing interrupt hypnosis. You confuse the mind,
Mhm.
and that breaks down the barrier.
Right.
Once you break down the barrier, you're there.
Yeah, and you can direct the thought process then wherever you want it to go.
You know, I've known quite a few guys that have followed the path of the game. I mean, they learned all these opening lines, how they would open a set, how they would get a woman to drop their guard, how they would do all these little mind games or games and get these women. And then what we found later on is, once they've learned and mastered it, you don't use it anymore. You don't need to have an opening line to go open a set. You have this confidence in this vibe about you that you don't need any of that to walk up and say, hey, how you doing, Tim? I'm so and so, and just your mere presence drops that creep meter or that stopping that hand. You know, they're, oh, I don't want him. You know, it's just it's very interesting. I don't know if you guys experience that, but I know at least 6 guys that, you know, they spent the time, they learned all this stuff, and then nope, they don't even need to use it anymore.
My biggest takeaway when I read the book The Game wasn't all the pickup artist stuff and all the tricks and stuff they did. It was the fact that all those tricks and techniques that they were doing were really good at getting women in a specific type of girl in bed quickly. They were targeting a specific type of girl. But it did nothing for long-term attraction. It could get them in bed quickly, and then these chicks wouldn't want to stick around because these guys really didn't have the social skills to be attractive for any kind of long-term substance. And most of those guys were miserable as hell because that's what they wanted. They wanted a deeper connection at the end of the day, and they couldn't be that guy for these women. These women wouldn't stick around, you know.
Well, but that goes to show that they didn't connect with themselves either.
Yeah.
They didn't know who they were. They weren't trying to be their authentic self. And, you know, you can use, like I said, street hypnosis does it all the time. You can use brain interruption techniques, and that'll get you at least listened to, you know, and it may get you to the bedroom. But if you don't know yourself, she wakes up next to the guy that he doesn't even want to be with himself. Why should she want to be with him?
Yeah.
Right. It's that blanket confidence. Cause like, I'll be honest with you guys when it comes to, and that really rung true with me, what you were saying, Vidar, about those opening lines. Dude, I've gotten laid twice by walking up to a girl and saying, I have diarrhea. Emotional spike, and then you go ahead and move. And it's all about that presence, that energy, that confidence in yourself that changes everything. That's really what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, guys overcomplicate
Absolutely.
it. Let's go back to what Wraith said, and a lot of people shit on the PUA, the fuzzy top hats and stuff like that. But it's like, it's a brain interrupter, but also what is an indicator? Oh, it's not boring. It's different. It's fun, right? And this is also why you tend to not really, those girls will not often stick around. Why? Because they're just looking for a good time at that point. So you're gonna get a much more niche. And if you're not really that guy, if you're just faking it, and the stories you have about the top hat, you know, the conversation starter, the icebreaker, that's all you really need. That's all game is teaching guys ways to trick themselves into just going up and breaking the ice. And that's why you don't need any of the pickup lines or any of that stuff. You just go up and introduce yourself and have the conversation, not hiding your dick. Right.
Yeah.
That, you know, I can't remember the author, but one guy talked about that, is that, you know, a lot of guys, when they go up to girls, they try to pretend like they're not trying to have sex, and they're often, you know, surprised when they succeed. Right. And they get friend zoned and stuff like that. It's like, yeah, you put yourself there. So all you really need is an icebreaker. My grandfather taught me that about just starting conversations with people. He said, all you need to do to start a conversation is just start the conversation, crack a joke, say something, introduce yourself, anything. And soon as you break the ice, then you can have a conversation.
And with that confidence, once you have that vibe where you don't have that nervousness, it's very attractive to women. But I'll tell you what, the way I looked at it with I call it the game, but it's really that male female personal inner dynamics that
The
I was
polarity.
teaching my kid. Yeah, and I was teaching them different things for their mind. Like one of the things is that they had to have prizability. You know, women have no sexual interest in a man that has no prizability. And teaching them that they're the prize. You want to have a woman pursue you, all these different things that were really nice. But getting back to what you were talking about, just real quick, I have a cousin who is a assistant vice president of a Fortune 500 company. And one of my sons wanted to go to work at that company. And he talked to him, and he told him this. He said, I can get you the interview. He says, but once you get that interview, and that was one of the hard things. It takes most people a couple of years to get the interview. But he said, I can get you the interview, but from there, it's going to be all you, whether you get the job or not. And that was the same thing with learning this stuff. And, you know, that stuff will get you the interview, but you have to have those other skill sets to be attractive for the long term. You know, just like Wraith was saying, and you guys were talking about, it'll get you the interview, you know, but you have to have the substance behind it, and you have to show your prizability and all these different things. You have to have the value to back it up. Otherwise, it is, yeah, you can use it to get laid, but that's not that fulfilling in the long run. At least it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I got a buddy who does the same thing. That he's so good at getting laid, but he has never been able to maintain a relationship. And it was just wild seeing him running through a lot of girls in college. And then there was one girl that he was seeing consistently for 3 months, and she just told him, like, I don't want to be with you, because there was no substance behind who he was. And he was a complete wreck afterwards. So you need to understand yourself first. And once you understand yourself first, then you can move accordingly. But anyways, guys, let's get to let's go ahead and do a roundtable on final thoughts and what's going on in your life. Paul, we're going to start with you. Paul?
Sorry, did you guys throw it to me?
Yeah, I threw it to you. Sorry. Final thoughts and what's going on in your world?
Oh my God. Well, one is not paying attention, apparently. Yeah, final thoughts on the wife store and the husband store. I mean, it really just comes down to, like, the wife store comes down to women's hypergamous nature, right? They are trying to look for their best possible option. So if you want to be in a long-term committed relationship, then your job is to be her best possible option, right? Her job, you know, it's her job to keep you around, right? So you've got to be that kind of guy that doesn't just settle for anything, you know. Be the kind of guy that's worth keeping, but also, you know, make sure that she's putting in that kind of investment too, you know, and don't just settle with the first girl that touches your dick. I'll tell you what, though, if you did settle down with the first girl that touches your dick and you know, the attraction's faded in the relationship and she's not putting out anymore, definitely get the book, Get Her to Fuck You Again. You can get it on Amazon and Audible. And then tune into the podcast on Monday. I'm going to be doing a live stream at 10 a.m. Eastern time on my YouTube channel, all about why attraction tends to fade in a long-term relationship and what you can do about it to turn things around.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, your work, for anybody who hasn't seen, is absolutely phenomenal. And you've got multiple books that cover all the bases that you need to live that fulfilling life and get everything sorted. Good stuff, man. Really appreciate it. Wraith, final thoughts.
You know, from the standpoint of, you know, what I really try to tell people is, you know, when you're looking for someone, whether it's a female or male, know what you want. You know, and you're only going to know what you want when you know you. So that's where your focus should be. And if you're going to date and you're going to look, date with intention. Date with intention to fill that need that you've created for yourself. So, you know, and since we're flogging books, I have 4 on Amazon. So if you want to read any of my books, go to Amazon, look Wraith under Wraith Theme Tour, and you can see them.
Good stuff, man. Yeah, you really put out some of the most fantastic content. Seriously, like, I mean, when we think about like elders, people that have been through everything, you got it down pat, and you really help people. I know a lot of personal clients that you've had that just completely fixed a lot of their internal issues just by having consultations. So thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, and most of them are in relationships now.
Yeah.
That's, you know, and I don't set people up to go into relationships. I set them up to fix themselves. But when you got your shit together, other people want to be with you.
Yeah, no, it really is such a beautiful thing. You fix yourself, it fixes everything else in your life. And a lot of times we always like to point at external factors, but a lot of times it's not external factors, it's actually internal. Love it. All right, Kevin, let's move to you.
All right, man. It's a great topic. You know, we started with the husband store. It had 6 levels, and still they wanted a little bit more. And found out in the end that okay, well, he just wanted too much. And then you look at the wives store. It had 3 levels. So it just shows the complexity of male and female. The dynamics are different. We should all accept that and embrace it, as a matter of fact. But before you start wondering about the husband store or the wives store, build your own store, call it the you store, and then find out how many levels you actually require, whether you're male or female, and what you want in I know you're gonna hate this, your partner or your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your future husband, your future wife. Figure that out first before you try to move on finding what you require in another. And sometimes it's hard to do that by yourself, especially if you've never sat down and actually figured out what works for you. Sometimes you need to be in a group of like-minded, successful men that can help you get there and help you figure those things out. And that's what we do at the Men of Now. So we're a new upcoming group. If you're interested in checking that out, menofnow.us/enroll. You can get on our mailing list. We can start seeing if we're a right fit for you, and then we can go from there. But my main take from that is build the U store first and figure that out and how many levels that needs to be. And then you can start looking elsewhere.
Love that. Yeah. And what are you even selling? That is great. That is great. And so I dropped that link in the chat. If you guys are interested in joining that community, we'll get a notification and we'll schedule time to talk to you just to make sure we're in alignment, because that's the most important thing is alignment. What we're even talking about today here with the women you bring into your life, make sure it's in alignment. If it's not in alignment, then you know what we're going to do? We're going to go ahead and push you in the right direction, whether that be the Dragons membership or whether that be with Paul and Beer Club, or whether it be a completely different direction. We're just here to help. That's really what it comes down to. All right, Vidar, let's jump to you. Final thoughts.
Hey, I would like to say that, Kevin, man, that was a great take. Build your U store first. Find out what you want, because those are great generalities. But even when it came to the wife store, I only made it to the first level. I didn't even hear that there were actually 3 or more levels. But you know what? I did know what that was important to me. Actually, having come from a sexless marriage before that, during my sexual prime, that was very important to me. Also, I'm shallow Hal, man. I knew for myself that she had to be an 8 or above. That's just, I'm like I said, right or wrong, that's what I wanted. And, the universe would bless me more than I could ever want with what I have. So it was a great point, Kevin. I agree with, you need to have that your now. And then all these other things that, I don't know about you guys, but this kind of stuff is my favorite topic, whether it's the original game. I guess it's just females are my favorite topic. But, this one was a great one today. Build that you store, know yourself, and then know what you want and go for it. I'm going to be doing a topic and running the ship here soon. I had put the idea out with Glenn. I was talking the other day about tips for keeping a wife, little tricks and rituals that help later on. I don't know if it would be something that would hit a lot of people, or if it's just, I know it'd be interesting and it'd be important to have for guys that do want that long-term relationship, because these things would help out later on. So anyway, we'll talk about that, and maybe Huds, you and I can talk about it too later on.
Yeah,
But,
I think that would be great. I think that, and to the audience, if you guys have any specific topics you want us to talk about, like, let us know. Like, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and let us know down in those comments what you're looking for.
And
I think
you
it
too,
would be great.
And you too, Paul. I'd like to talk to you about it and run it by you guys, and then and see from there. So maybe dial it in with a little more laser precision. So
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
anytime.
you guys.
Awesome. Viking Paradigm, Tarl, final thoughts.
So if anything you want to do in life, you need a fucking plan, right? Doesn't matter what it is, you need a plan, right? Because Wraith taught me this, right? Most people have dreams, they don't have goals. A goal has an actual plan to achieve it, right? And you need to be honest with yourself. I said this last week, like, stop lying to yourself. Like, a lot of people know the truth, but they lie to themselves. They tell themselves, false affirmations like they can't do it, right? And make a lot of excuses. Understand the difference between a reason and an excuse. You need to know your limits. Yeah, we all have our limits. You can't be Michael Jordan, but you can become an exceptional basketball player if you put your mind to it. A lot of guys just don't want to accept the truth, and that's why they suffer. All right, I was one of those guys, an arrogant fool, right? Very, suffered for a long time because of my own arrogance. So I learned, right? Took me a lot longer than some motherfuckers, but I did learn, and I've gotten success. Now, as to what got coming up, I can't talk about it yet, but I've got some things in the works. So yeah, Skull.
Love to hear it. Well, guys, final thoughts, at least from me. This was a fantastic show. I really enjoyed talking about this. The intersexual dynamics. It's not about sex, and that's what's interesting. When you say intersexual dynamics, it's not about the sex. It's about the understanding that we are of different programs. Men and women, we're different. It's like, well, I guess that's a bad example. I was going to say like AMD versus Intel. Like, we're still doing the same thing. We're just doing it in different ways.
Would you say that men are from Mars and women are from Venus?
Yeah, I guess you could say it that way. Fair enough. But it's always good to look at it. And I love that too, Kevin, the U store, because that's really what it needs to be. Once you have your grounding, then boom, you will then get the results that you're looking for in life. I've seen it myself. Dude, God bless every single day that I have this woman in my life. And it's just because I worked on myself and I became that prize. So it's just something to consider. Outside of that, as Kevin was mentioning, we do have the Men of Now community, which is growing. And oh my God, I'm so excited. Kevin didn't even mention that he's got a webinar coming up. For those that are members, it'll be completely for free. If not, we're going to have a small nominal fee. This is coming up in the next 2 weeks here. And it's going to be all about financial decisions. What to do to set yourself up for success, especially in 2025, especially with the uncertainty that we have. Now, outside of that, we do have the Men of Now channel where we do stream each and every week. And it is
Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Wraith, I just saw your message. You're making me crack up. Okay. Next week, Wednesday, we have a very good friend. His name is the professional wingman, Thomas Edwards. He has been on Steve Harvey's show. He just had a recent media outing, and he's had many media outings. And it's going to be a very fun discussion. One of the things that we're doing is thrive in 25. So in 2025, we're going to be bringing on a lot of different people for interviews to help you absorb that knowledge and really thrive in this year. Thrive in 25. That is the motto. So I'm going to go ahead and drop that link in the chat if you want to give it a follow. But yeah, no, it's going to be exciting. Typically we stream every Tuesday. This week is going to be on Wednesday. But have a look out. There's a lot of information there, and there's a lot of information from everybody here. This was an absolutely fantastic discussion. Again, just to kind of cap it off, look inward first. Like, there's no reason why you see so many like single moms that are complaining about no good men out there, yet you gave it up for no reason and you were irresponsible. Like, what prize is there? Become the prize. Become the prize. And that's really all it comes down to. But with that, we will see you guys next week. It's been a fantastic time. Peace out.
On waves we fought to war, brotherhood sword to sword, thunder cracked above. In these battles we love, the dragon ship sails through the stormy tide with raven wings as our guide. Skies of fire and ash, hearts begin to clash, but it's time